Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. The background is such a mess. I'd really love to say that I'd do something about it, but I'm like kind of okay with my bedroom, you know? And I probably do need to do something about this situation over here, but it will happen in the future, I'm sure. I'm Ellen, if you're new here. Sorry, I'm just looking down at my laptop because I have written a bit of what I'm going to talk about for this video. Not a script, because I don't do that, but like what I am going to cover, because I feel like now I'm making these like tipsy videos. Tipsy videos. I need to like actually think about what I want to say. So I write little like blog posts about them, and then I feel like I have my thoughts together to like, actually tell you guys what I want to say. So welcome back to my channel if you're old here. If you're new here, hey, like I said, I'm Ellen. I got back a few months ago from a backpacking trip around Southeast Asia, and now I'm basically sharing all my tips for it. I'm totally aware of the situation that's going on in the world right now and the fact that we are not traveling, but I do feel like there are lots of people who are probably still planning backpacking trips for when this all gets like back to as normal as possible, and I'm sure there are lots of people who are still thinking and considering backpacking trips in the future. So I want to put that content out there so that in the future it can be used. So if you're watching this in the future, hey, how's it in the future? And if you're watching it right now, then we will travel again. Please do remember to hit that subscribe button if you're new here and you're enjoying the content. I am doing YouTube full-time at the moment, which is incredible, but I need all the support I can get, obviously, to make this a legit business. So if you are new here and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, I would love if you could hit that subscribe button and smash a like on the video. As a little bit of support to me, please. So yeah, there are kind of 5, I think, main topics I'm going to cover in this video. My first being, where do you want to go? My second being, how much time do you have? Third is your budget, and then 4th, 5th and 6th are accommodation, transportation and cover, like travel insurance. So they're my kind of 6 big topics I'm going to cover, and then I'm going to do some tips within those about why I think those are kind of the most important things to consider when you're planning a backpacking trip. Start with, where do you want to go? So obviously in my example I picked Southeast Asia, but we were deciding between Southeast Asia and South America. South America is probably going to be our next big backpacking trip, which is super exciting. I have no idea when it's going to happen, of course, like that's a lot of saving and planning we need to do to make that happen, but that is what we're thinking next. But we chose Southeast Asia in this instance. We chose Southeast Asia purely because this was our first big backpacking trip, and Southeast Asia is notoriously a lot easier to backpack than South America. Also, South America just felt a little bit more scary to us, so we went for Asia. But that is the first big thing to consider. So some things you can take into consideration with that is the ease of backpacking, the place you want to go. What do you want to see? Like, what do you want your trip to revolve around? Is it like, do you want it to be like a hiking trip? Do you want it to be a beach trip? Is it like a spiritual thing? Like, why are you taking this trip? What do you want to see? Is there like a landmark that you like, I must go see? I don't know, the Statue of Liberty and the so that's like an America road trip. Is that what do you want to see? Why do you want to go on this trip? So I think that's obviously the first big thing to decide is, where do you want to go? And is it like multiple countries, or is it one country? Like, there is so much to consider, and I really feel like that's the biggest thing to decide first. A really great place to go to help with this is SDA Travel. I'm not affiliated with them in any way. Wish I was, but I'm not. But we used a couple of their routes when we were traveling, and they've got loads of great like info and brochures on their and to help guide you through where you feel like you should be going. Obviously there's so much content online that will help you, but that is like a one-stop shop for like getting a brochure for South America, getting a brochure for Southeast Asia, getting a brochure for the United States, like Europe, everything you could want. Or if you're going to live in Australia, they've got all the information to do like the working abroad visas. They have everything you need, so I'm going to leave them linked in the blog post below, because they're a really, really great one-stop shop for like researching where you want to go. Time you've got. So we took 4 months out of our lives. We are like a little bit older, so we're not going like on a gap year or anything, so we had to save this up for this, quit our jobs, move out, like go and do this. So we decided to take 4 months. Obviously this is maybe something you'd want to consider before you decide where you're going, so it could be done like the either way round really. So if you've got a month, obviously you're limited in how many places you can see in a month without completely making yourself crash. Or if you've got a year, do you want to work in places? Do you want to see more? Do you want to stop for longer in places? How much time do you realistically have to take this trip? And that will really influence as well where you decide to go. If you've only got like a couple of weeks, obviously you can try and see as much as possible. Maybe take a Euro trip if you're like in the UK like I am. There are so many like different things to consider in how much time you have. So if you work out how much time you have, that could influence where you want to go, or you could decide where you want to go and then delve back into the planning once you figure out how much time you want to take out of life. Topic is budget. So obviously your budget is really dependent on where you're backpacking. I can only really speak for Southeast Asia, and our budget was £1,000 a month. We did go over budget, but we stayed in some really nice hotels along the way. We ate out every meal. There are ways you can really reduce your budget, so consider what your budget is and what you want your budget to be, because then you can start planning towards that. And also Steph My Life has a really great savings plan that she sells on her site. I'm going to make sure that's linked in the blog post as well, because that's a great way to kind of plan your savings for like a trip like this. So she basically puts all your financial information, so what's coming in every month and what's going out every month, and then she bases for a whole year what your savings would be from that. It's a really great sheet. I personally have never used it, but from knowing people that have, and from seeing her talk about it online, it looks amazing. Or if you're really good at Excel, I'm sure you can make something similar, but I think her sheet's only about £5, around the £5 mark, so it's a really good tool to plan your savings. And then once you've decided where you want to go, there is so much information online about how much you're going to be spending in these places. So for example, if you're backpacking either Europe or the States, it's probably going to be more expensive than South America or Asia, just because that's the nature of these places. So definitely consider your budget, because once you know how long you're staying for, you know how much you want to spend every month, then you can plan how much money you need to save to make this happen, which is obviously really important. Like what you're going to be spending your money on, you need to think about your transportation. So for example, the first big thing you need to think about is your flights out to wherever you're going, or your transportation out to wherever you're going, because that will be probably the biggest, maybe the biggest expense, a big expense basically, on your trip. So think about where you want to go and how much it's going to cost you to get there and how you're going to get there. Normally a flight, obviously. And then when you're in the countries or country you're going to, how are you getting around within the country? This is again kind of time specific. If you've only got a month, you probably prefer to fly from place to place just to save you time. But with us, with Southeast Asia, we travel by boat and train a lot, purely because A, it is cheaper, B, it's so much easier than going to the airport. The airport, I find, can be a really stressful experience. You have to get there early, you have to get there, whereas getting a train or a boat, or for example if you're on a Euro trip, getting a train is a lot of the time so much easier and so much better, in my opinion. But we were lucky, we had the luxury of time. You might not have that amount of time to be able to get a boat or a plane, or a train everywhere. You might have to get planes. So then also when you're planning your budget, you'll need to take that into consideration as well, that you will be traveling a lot and like what's the best mode of travel. I know a lot of people do like hitchhiking, and there is a couple of ride sharing apps that I think are available in Europe. You might want to consider something like that. If that is something that you're interested in, or if you're like road tripping, how much it's going to cost you to rent the car or the like van, whatever you're renting. There are so many different modes of transport in these places. You need to figure out what's best for you. Obviously Asia as well, there's scooters. A lot of people travel by scooter. Do you need to learn to ride a scooter before you go? I'd recommend it. I didn't feel confident learning to ride in Asia, but you might be completely different. That's just a big thing to take into consideration. How are you going to get about? More things you're going to spend your money on would be accommodation. So another big thing to consider is, where do you want to stay? How do you want to travel? So we stayed predominantly in hostels, all either booked through Hostel World or from booking.com, and we spent a lot of time, so predominant amount of time in hostels, then we spent the rest of our time in hotels. So we were the kind of travellers that needed a bit of both. We couldn't be in hostels all the time, we wanted our own space from time to time. So it was, for us, really great to have both. And like, you can't, like, I would get exhausted of sharing with people all the time. Like, I wanted the separation from people we didn't know, and like being in our own space, having our own toilet, having our own shower, that kind of thing. But not everybody wants that. For example, if you're traveling solo, hostels are amazing because you get to meet people. We were obviously traveling together, so hotels were great because it sometimes even works out cheaper than being in a hostel. So if you're a couple, that's a great way to go. We're not a couple, we're just best friends, but that's a great way to go. But if you're solo traveling, hostels are amazing for meeting people. I'm going to do a whole video on like picking the perfect accommodation for you. But my like one top tip is read those reviews. I've actually got two top tips. One is read the reviews. Just read all the reviews for the hostels on both Booking or Hostel World, TripAdvisor, everything you can find, because that's super important to see if it is actually a good, worthwhile place to stay and spend your money, even if you're not spending very much. And then a location. So I'd base this off, what are the kind of main attractions you want to see in that city or that place? Is your hostel close to those so you can save money on getting yourself to and from the places? Is it in walking distance? I feel like personally it's sometimes worth spending that little bit extra to be in a convenient location to all the like good tourist attractions around you, because it just makes your experience so much easier, like smoother, and just better in my opinion. But then if you want to be like a little bit out and spend less, consider like how you're getting into the centre to see the things you want to see. So they're my kind of two big tips. But for example, if like there were times when we'd stay in like airport hotels because we knew we had an early flight, so just taking into consideration making your life the most easy, as easy as possible with your accommodation choices. So staying in airport hotels or somewhere that's close to like the bus station or train station you're getting the next day can also be a really great shout in many occasions. And then my last thing I wanted to talk about is travel insurance. So this is like a massive topic, of course, but it's so important. I can't stress to you enough the importance of getting good travel insurance. Beth Sandland is an amazing travel blogger, and she's written an amazing post about travel insurance, and that is the travel insurance I chose to go with. It's called Cover For You. I'm going to leave her post linked in my blog post, so you can go and check out her travel insurance, because it's her post is really good. There are a lot of travel insurances that aren't, because you could think, oh, I could buy more than the whole world travel insurances, but they're invalid if you don't have a flight home, for example. So as a backpacker, you want backpacker insurance, because there are a lot of loopholes that travel insurance companies use that invalidate backpackers if it's not a specific backpacking insurance, because you are going to so many places, you're doing so many adventure kind of sports, and like getting yourself into situations where you're probably more likely to need insurance. So make sure you get specific backpacker insurance, because yeah, like I said, a lot of it's invalidated if you don't have a flight home, which a lot of us, I think the majority of us that were traveling, didn't. So that's super important. And then my last kind of tip bit is to get a credit card. I'm not a money channel. I'm not advising you to get a credit card and spend it and use your credit or whatever. I'm just saying that booking flights on credit is really good, because you get extra cover on them. And then if you have any like big, if you like, touch wood obviously, like if you do have any incidents or accidents that you end up needing hospital treatment for, you do have to pay for that outright, and then you're given the money back by the insurance company a lot of the time. And even if it's not an expensive thing that happens, like I had a sea urchin sting and I had to get the things picked out, which cost I think about £100. But even stuff like that, like it's not something you planned into your traveling expense, so it's good you can put it on credit, and then when your insurance covers it, pay that off. But make sure you're in a position to have a credit card and be like smart enough to pay off every month and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to get into too much information about credit cards, because that is not my thing, but it is a useful thing to have. And yeah, that was kind of everything I wanted to talk about. Like I said, there's the blog post down below with all the links and to everything I mentioned, and maybe a little bit more information as well. And I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. I'm posting kind of sporadically at the moment, so do check out my Instagram and Twitter for when I upload, because I do post on both those platforms about when I upload. And please do remember to subscribe, like I said at the beginning of the video, because it means so much to the channel and it's really important to me. And I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.